Hello, this is Angela Anderson. Thanks for joining me for this acrylic painting tutorial. In tonight's video, I'm going to be showing you how to paint a cute little robin with some cosmos flowers on a fence. It's going to be really fun. I've got my husband Mark with me.
Hey there, everybody.
He's going to be chatting with the live chat tonight. So if you've got questions, you can ask those and we'll try to answer. Let's get started. Alrighty, so if you're new to our channel, welcome. We're really glad to have you here. If you're not new and you're coming back for more, really glad to have you. Even extra glad. We are working on an 11 by 14 canvas today. This is a watercolor canvas board. Really doesn't matter. This one's from Fredrix. Watercolor canvas board just has kind of like a little bit more papery surface. It's really smooth, but really any kind of canvas will do. If you want it more smooth, you can paint it with gesso. I don't usually paint gesso on my canvases to prep them, but what I did paint this one with was a little coat of light magenta. I just got some more fluid acrylics and some fun colors, so we're going to be using a couple of them tonight. This is Titan Green Pale and Light Magenta. If you don't have them, the light magenta is white and naphthol red. So really any red will do, or even magenta. Quinacridone Magenta would work, maybe with a little bit of yellow to make it a little bit more orangey colored. But I've just kind of blocked that in, or painted this on with a very light coat. Sprayed it with water, a little bit of glazing medium to make it stick, and then very light coat, and just wiped it on with a paper towel. The paper towel kind of helps keep it even. And I use shop towels because they're thicker and they don't leave as much fuzz. So if you have a really fuzzy towel, you might use like a microfiber towel instead, or an actual cloth towel. All right, let's go over our colors. I'm just talking about stuff today. Let's get to painting. Carbon black, burnt umber. These both are burnt umber. This one is heavy body and this one is fluid. Burnt sienna, yellow oxide, India yellow, cadmium yellow light, Pyrrole orange, quinacridone magenta, that's also fluid, ultramarine blue, and this one was that Titan green pale. The Titan green pale is brown, yellow, and phthalo green and white. So we're going to be using all the colors that are in this. I'm not introducing a new color, that you can't mix if you don't have it. So green gold is the next color. That's also a fluid color, and it's mixed with yellow and white and yellow and phthalo green. So just like kind of both of those yellows with some phthalo green, mostly yellow. And then I've got phthalo green yellow shade and phthalo green blue shade. If you have one or the other, you just mix a little bit of yellow or a little bit of blue into them to get the one or the other. But we're just use whatever greens you've got, though. I'm just using these because I have them and they're fluid, and so they'll go on a little bit easier because we're going to do some lines and grasses and things. So I'll show you kind of some ways to do grasses that I found is a little bit easier tonight. One of the things we'll focus on, and then also some really easy brush strokes for flowers. This one is Unbleached Titanium or Titan Buff. I've got both fluid and heavy body. Same thing with titanium white, and then I've got some satin glazing liquid here. Okay, so again, most of these colors are ones that you can mix if you don't have them. The naphthol red I don't have on my palette, but you can get a naphthol red by mixing your magenta and orange, or a little bit of yellow into your magenta to get more of a orangey red, and use that for your background with some white. Okay. Phew, that was a lot. You know what I don't have out is my brushes. I just realized I did not put out any brushes. So let's do that. Let's grab some brushes here. We're gonna need, so I'll tell you how I pick my brushes. And I use a variety of sizes on mine, but basically whatever size canvas you're using and whatever subject you're using, you just want to pick a brush that's going to fit that area. So we've got some fairly chunky posts that we're going to be doing. So I might pick a brush that's a little bit wider, like a 12 so that I can do them, at least the, you know, the main blocking in part with the larger brush. So I'll have a 12 bright, and then I've got a little bit smaller ones, 8 and 6 bright or flat. The flat's just a little bit longer. I've got a Filbert, and I'll probably use those for the background too. And then for our bird, we're gonna want a little bit smaller brushes, so I'll probably grab my angle brush. Let me see if I can find it over here. Whoops, did not mean to grab that one, that fell out. Angle brush, and then a round brush for those little feathers that it's got. So I'll want kind of a smallish round. I'll grab my number 3, and that'll give me plenty of room. And then for our petals, we'll want some sort of a round or filbert brush, something with a natural curve already. So I'm probably going to grab my, where is it? Sorry, I didn't do this ahead of time. I usually do this. There we go. Probably grab my Aspen Filbert number 2, because those will be about the size that I want for my petals. Now, the Aspen are a little bit thicker, and if you don't like that, you can use a, let me see, like a 2 round or a 4 round or something like that. That's about the same width when it's pressed down flat, you know, so something like that will work. Okay, I've got my brushes. Let's get going here. How's everybody doing?
We're doing great.
Doing great?
Yeah.
Good.
How are you doing?
Very good. Excited. We're painting flowers. It's always a good night when we paint flowers. All right, so this reference photo has a lot of neutral tones in the background. If you want to keep those, you know, you could probably just leave this pink showing and just do the whole thing with like an unbleached titanium. So I'll probably start there, but I do think I want to add a little touches of green. So that's why I got this especially neutral green here. I think it'll look really nice in our background. So I'm going to start with the unbleached titanium. And I've got my largest brush, and I'm just going to start slapping it on there, really. That's, I don't know, a better way of saying it. I might get a little bit of that thicker paint. The thicker paint, you can see, goes on more opaquely. So where I want it to really cover and I don't want as much of that background to show through, I'll grab that. It also is a little bit easier for things like dry brushing. So we're gonna do some dry brushing in the wood, especially. So that's why I have some of the thicker paint in like the yellow oxide and the burnt umber, because I know I'm going to need a little bit thicker paint for those sections. All right, so let's just go ahead and do this. This is where you can kind of let your creativity come out and do some little fun brush strokes, whatever looks good to you. If you want it really smooth and blended, you can use something like a sponge and kind of put your paint on and like rub it in circles so that it's like really smoothly blended. But I want this kind of painterly look in the background, so I'm going to kind of just do this kind of back and forth motion with my brush and quickly cover most of this background here. And I didn't bother sketching anything right now because I don't want to have to paint around any of the elements. I think it's just going to be easier to cover it like this, and then we'll come back in and add color. But you can see how pretty that pink is. There was a lot of pink tones in the reference photo, so that's why I chose that pink for our background, and plus they're pink in our flowers too. So normally I wouldn't pick a background color that is not like, unless I was using like naphthol red. This color has naphthol red in it, but because I'm using 2 other colors that can mix a equivalent to naphthol red, it'll work, you know. I don't like, you know, just for color harmony, you don't want to introduce too many colors that are different, you know. And we're going to be mixing all of these together in different ways. So it'll be fine. Most of these pre-mixed colors and things are versions of each other, you know. So like my burnt umber and burnt sienna are the same pigment. I was just talking to Mark about that before the show. How interesting it is that, you know, there's certain colors that are the same. It's just the way they process them that makes them so different. These are both PBR7 pigments. So I think I got that right. Let me see. Yeah, PBR7.
Professional bull riders?
Pigment brown 7. I think that's what it stands for. P for in all of your, you know, when you're looking at your colors on the back here, usually it'll say pigments, and then has the PY 150 is Nicolazzo yellow, PG 36 is Phthalo green, and then PY 175. I think that is like a Hansa yellow or benzimidazolone yellow, one of those. But our cadmium is an equivalent. So, all right. So down here, I'm going to do more of this green. And if you want to mix this green, you would use your yellow oxide with your phthalo green blue shade and white, and then maybe a little bit of burnt umber or burnt sienna just to neutralize it. And it's kind of a neutral brownish green, very light and very, very kind of like toned down. You could even use your unbleached titanium. I would probably bypass the mixtures of the burnt sienna and yellow oxide by just using my let me see if I can mix it with a unbleached titanium and my phthalo green, because unbleached titanium has yellow oxide and burnt umber already in it, or burnt sienna already in it. I think it's burnt sienna. So let's get some of that unbleached titanium and just a tiny bit of my green. Yeah, and you can see, there we go. We've got a color that is very similar, almost identical, just by mixing that. So instead of having to mix, you know, 4 colors together, you can just mix it with the Titan Buff, which already is a normal palette, has a permanent spot on our palette. Titan Buff, Unbleached Titanium, they're both the same. They're just different. Golden is Titan Buff and Liquitex is the Unbleached Titanium. I prefer Unbleached Titanium, but they don't make the fluid version, so I use the golden version when I use the fluid. But, all right, so this is just burnt umber, and I'm just going to kind of do some random marks. You could also use a Filbert for this. If you're getting marks that you don't like, then try changing your brush and see, you know, if that helps. But these large brushes, we can kind of, I'm not painting them flat, kind of just turning them on their side and swiping side to side now on the corner of the brush. That way I'm getting a little bit more control over the brush strokes, and I'm getting kind of more random brush strokes too. Okay, so there we go. And now I'm gonna kind of take this green, mix a little bit of that burnt sienna into it, and just kind of do some random brush strokes up here. And you can do as much or as little as you want. This is all going to be kind of background behind our flowers, so it doesn't have to look particularly like anything. Just trying to kind of get that sort of soft meadowy feeling. Let your creativity flow here. Don't worry too much about it looking perfect.
Kind of like a shadowy depth being added. Right.
Well, and look at, you look at our picture, there's not a whole lot of detail anywhere in that background. It's all kind of that real blendy.
Right. Bokeh-y.
Bokeh, yeah, almost bokeh. Very similar. All right, so I'm going to get a little bit of that green gold, just to add a little bit of that in with this green. I don't want it just the green gold, because the green gold is really bright, but I'm going to go ahead and just drop in with the corner just a few little slip dabs of, that's a good name for it, slip dabs. Slap dabs, yeah. Yeah, exactly, slapdash. Getting a little smaller as I go up, maybe, you know. Just kind of putting them around in a random way. A little bit bigger as they go to the bottom, maybe. But there we go. All right. I may just have you dry that really quick for me, hon.
Okay.
I'll clean off my palette and then, 'cause I've got a couple layers of paint on there that are pretty fresh. Clean up my hands and my workstation here a little bit. Now I've got a big area here that I'm not going to really need that paint right now, so it's still pretty fresh though, and I've got a fairly good amount of it. Wish I hadn't used up such a big area of my palette, but I'll leave it for now. This is a glass palette. I get asked about that a lot, and it's got a gray tone to it that is a true mid-tone. So anything that I mix on it that's lighter, we can know that it's falling in this range. And anything that I mix on it that is darker, that looks darker than this background, then we know is going to be falling in this range. So it really helps to kind of start with this neutral gray background. And they also make them in the paper palettes too. The Richardson palettes are what I used for years before I got the glass palette. And I don't have the cover on this one, so I don't. But it's the Richardson paper palette. I think the link is down in the description for my Amazon shop, and it's in there. But it also is that neutral gray, and that really does help a lot with when you're mixing your colors to know if you're getting them dark enough or not. And with our paintings, we're going to be wanting to have, you know, this one is actually pretty neutral. Like most of the colors are kind of falling in this range, like lighter. The darkest values would probably be in our bird, like the eye and some of the under parts of the wing. It's our focal point though, so I like that it's going to have the most dramatic darks because that really draws your eye in. And then the rest of the painting we're going to keep pretty neutral. And all of these ones in the middle here in this background area I've kept together, very close together in value, so they probably all falling in, like, you can see how this one looks like it's starting to disappear, you know, here we can see, so it's probably falling in a pretty light value, and you can tell that it's light on the palette here too, but they're all within one or two values of each other. This one in the background here is probably this one, this value, so it's like one away from white, which makes sense because it's unbleached titanium, and titanium white would be this one, so the unbleached is probably this one. And then our mixed colors are kind of falling in here. So all of these background colors are really falling into very close together on the value scale, and that helps give you that really soft bokeh, soft blended look. So if you're having trouble blending, you might look at your values and see if you can kind of stick two colors together closer in value, and those will already blend more to the eye. Even though they're not blended at all here, they don't really stand out too much because they're the same value. They're the same amount of darkness. So just something to think about when you're doing yours. Okay, so let's go ahead and start drawing. So this is pretty good for my background. I might, you know, add a few little things to it before we finish it, but we'll get our posts in here. I think I need to darken up this bottom area, but I can do that later. So let's go ahead and get our sticks in here, our posts. So this top post has our bird. So let's go ahead and kind of draw him in because he's our main focal point. So his tail comes out. He might be a little bit big, but the wing comes down a little bit, and that angle here it makes kind of like a little check mark, upside down check mark there where the wings come down and then back up. These two lines are parallel, the tail and the wing line. I probably need to move that all over just a little bit because I'm getting that tail too close to the edge. So I'm going to start that over. Okay, so there we go. So that's kind of what I'm looking at. That wing. The body is coming up. He's got a really round shape. Some birds are a little bit more compact and they're a little bit more streamlined, but these little robins are so cute because they got a big belly. And then his little head just kind of pops right out from there on the top. So make sure you're giving him a nice... I think I brought that up too much. The head doesn't stick up too far. It's almost a straight line here, so don't want it sticking up too much right here. But then right here we're seeing a pretty pronounced dip right there. And then the beak is like if you just draw a straight line across, that's the beak. The eye is right on that line or above it, kind of right in the middle of that head. And then there's that cutout of the orange that kind of comes around the side of the face there. Okay, that wing continues up here. It basically splits this part in half. And then the feet come out from the back here, forward. And they're going to be sitting on our little log. Okay, so that's it. Let's go ahead and put our log now, or post. I keep calling it log. Post. So if you look at the picture, the front of that bird lines up with the side of this post right here. And the butt end of him kind of right in, well, really right there. I may be making this too wide. I made my bird a little bit big, maybe. And then this post is up here. If you look at his head, it's just below the head, so it's somewhere in here. It's pretty close to the edge here and comes down. It's a little bit smaller. It's not as wide. It's a little farther away. So then if you just line up your vanishing point here, this way, then we can sort of figure out our lines are going to come out from somewhere off the canvas this way. So we're just going to line up these sort of in that same general ballpark. And this one you can't see, but you're seeing this one right here.
So the vanishing point is a fictitious point to where it appears that all the lines come together, right?
By fictitious, I don't know. It's
not like an actual physical point. It's just you.
Right. It's a point where all of the it's not an actual feature that you're going to see.
Right.
It's a point. All of these lines. Let me do it on paper here.
It's an optical illusion.
It's easier to see on paper, maybe. Well, you've got your horizon line, and then somewhere on this horizon line is going to be your vanishing point. With our fence, we've got our fence coming up. Because of the way we're looking at it, it's at an angle. And so our vanishing point here, so all these little lines that I'm drawing through are going to do like that. So this is our post here, and our post here, and our bird sitting on our post, here. I don't know how to draw birds. There you get the idea. Right. So that's what I'm doing with those lines. Okay. We can't see the vanishing point. This is our canvas right here. So we're only seeing that much of this, but we're assuming that those vanishing points, and you can find that by marking any two items that are the same height. So I know that this and this post are actually the same height, but because we're looking at an angle like this, we're not seeing this one looks taller, so then we could just draw that vanishing point down to our horizon line wherever it is, and then we know that these other lines of the these lines between the
wires,
posts are going
right.
to be going to that mark.
Okay.
So,
Just want to make sure that everybody understood that.
yeah, good idea. All right.
It's the optical illusion.
Right.
My zoomer isn't working again.
It's not working?
I'm trying to zoom in, zoom out. It's having a hard time.
Okay. So I think that's probably pretty close to where we're wanting to be, and our lines are actually pretty pretty janky. I'm gonna make my bird a little smaller. He's a little too big. He's looking a little boss, but I'm gonna draw him really fast, smaller. He's just a little too big. So I'd kind of like to make my post a little skinnier too. So we'll make our bird a little bit more like that. Although now we've got a lot of room up top. So maybe I'll make all of these a little bit bigger, a little bit taller. Start my post up here. Sorry, just drawing these over.
Well, no, so you're trying to reduce the amount of headroom between the top of the bird and the canvas?
Right,
Okay.
but I need to make him a little bit smaller just because he was a little too big for the size of the posts.
Hidden the
So I
feeder.
probably should have started with the posts, not the bird. But, I wanted to make sure I had room for the bird. So just taking a little bit extra time to get the proportions right,
So where will all the splatters go then?
Where will all the spiders go?
The splatters.
Oh, splatters. I don't know.
I know it's happening.
That's true. We're going to do lots of splatters for sure.
It's been too long.
Gotta be some splatters. And I think I want a little bit, like something in between. Yeah. All right, so I think I'm gonna use I could use this brush, but I think I want a little bit longer brush, so I think I'm gonna use a 10 flat here. But again, just use what you've got. Don't run out and buy all these brushes. I just have them in my studio, so I'm gonna use them. But I know not everybody's gonna have, 12 different sizes of flats or whatever. Just use what you've got. It's not gonna make that much difference. Just sometimes a brush will make it a little bit faster for me working. What?
Can I consider your brushes mine too?
Why, yes.
Okay, just to make sure. Guess I didn't have to run out to get any new ones.
No. I'm using yellow oxide and burnt umber for my posts. And I'm going to narrow this one down quite a bit. But I want it to be pretty much vertical. So, and I'm not going to worry too much about perfecting it at this point because I do want to put my grass sort of behind these as well as in front so it looks natural. So I'm just kind of putting these in right now as place markers, but I'm going to come back in after I do my grass and probably finish them off. So I'm going to go pretty high with this one actually because it's pretty close up to the top there. And its top is kind of cut wider than it's got almost like a cap on it. It's not a cap, but it looks like it. Just the way it's cut, it's a little thicker on the top. Just using the edge of my brush here to get straight lines. If it's easier for you, you can kind of turn it to the side. Sometimes I find it easier to get straight lines this way. You could tape this off if you have a really hard time with it, or you could even use a ruler and set up your ruler along the edge. This one is my clean one. This is my dirty one that I paint with. But you can see where, you know, I could take it and set it up. Especially a T-square is helpful because I can see if I'm, you know, a little bit skew on something, and I can just run my ruler down that edge, and I know it's creating a perfectly flat end. Come on. Trying to get it to line up there. There we go. Really easy way of doing that. I got a little bit on my edge because I didn't clean it off before I moved it over here, but you get the idea. Okay, so there's that one. That's pretty close to the color that I'm seeing on there. Now, you know, now that I'm seeing it finished, I'm going to go ahead and just use this because it'll make it easier. So this time I'll clean it off. And go a little bit thicker, maybe thin it down just slightly. Okay, so once I get that line in, now I can just fill in the middle. And that's Yellow Oxide and Burnt Umber. Just run your streaks down vertically so that if there are any streaks like this, it just looks like wood. We're already going to do that later, so might as well put it on that way right from the beginning. Save ourselves another step. All right, that looks good. I can add a little bit of burnt or unbleached titanium because this top part is a little bit lighter. Just kind of put that right on there. It's kind of a cap where the bird's sitting on. Same thing for this one. Make it a little bit lighter. All right, so there we go. Got our good post started. This looks skewed because of the camera angle. So by the way, you know, that's what it looks like there. When I do this, it makes it look like these are curved or something because the camera is on an angle. But I've kind of switched back to my angled because when I do stuff right in the front here, it just was covering up everything. I haven't really figured out how to do the top down without having my hand in the way. You know, I just don't know that it's possible for the way I paint. Seems like I'm always putting my hand right there. Yeah, some, but I don't find that side cam is as easy to see because it's so much smaller. All right, just trying to get my hands clean here. All right, so let's start doing some grasses. So one of the things that I like to do when I'm doing grasses, I like to use a brush that is either, I honestly like a flat brush for it, but it has to be a flat brush. Like these ones are too thick. They're not going to give me like a good thin line. So if you're going to use a flat brush for your lines, it has to be a brush that's kind of soft. So an angle brush is a really good brush to use for your grasses. You can also use a liner or a round brush. So like a script liner does a really good job because it's got a nice long, thin bristles. But if you're using a liner or a really thin brush like this, you can't use the thicker paint because it's so floppy, it doesn't push the paint around. So you have to have a really fluid paint. That's one of the reasons why I put out the fluids in my greens, because I knew I was going to want to do a lot of lines. So having that really fluid paint helps. If you're just have heavy body acrylics, that's fine. You just water them down a little bit so that they're more fluid so that they can do these thin lines. But if you try to do the grass with your brush with paint that's too thick, it won't work. It's just going to cause you problems. So it should be almost like ink consistency. And starting with the fluid, you know, I barely have to add any water to get it there. All right, so I'm going to do like a little bit of that background green with some green gold to start with. And if you add a lot of water, then add some glazing medium to help it stick. The glazing medium just works like a glue. I'm going to get rid of all this chalk now. Don't need it anymore. Make sure your post is dry before you do this step. I'm going to get rid of that. I don't need these lines right now. I kind of moved my post, so I'm going to probably redraw those lines later. Just get rid of all that. Okay, so I'll show you how I like to do the grass. So I find that doing it really fast and doing it with the tip of this liner brush down. If you're using a flat brush, you can do it also, but you're going to want to hold it right flat to the canvas. So you want the blade of the brush to be flat to the canvas. And then as you pull up, you're just going to kind of pivot that brush so that it loses contact with the canvas, right? So however far you want to do, and you can do it with a dry brush just to kind of practice it. You can do it on paper just to get an idea. It's just going to be this flicking motion like this. And we're going to start out with it set and flat, and as I flick up, it's going to lose contact and that line's going to taper off. Okay? It's the easiest way to do grasses, and you can do them really fast and do lots of them. The only trouble with using a flat brush like this is if you get to where you're turning it too much, then you're going to get a thick area. So if you tend to do that, what you can do is kind of start it at an angle and then flick it in the direction that you want it to go. You just want to make sure that wherever this is pointing is a thin line. You don't want to end it where it's kind of flat to the canvas, because then you're going to end up with a squared off thick line. Okay, so you may want to practice on paper a little bit just to kind of get a feel for it, and just make sure that where you're lifting it, you're keeping that line angled so that it stays thin. Okay, if you do it, let me do it on paper so you can see what I'm talking about. So I'm going to be doing this, and I can turn them and curve them, but I have to curve it so that I'm keeping that flat blade facing the direction that I'm pulling. If I do like this, I'm going to get these thick lines. If I'm ending it where the flat side is, then I'm going to end up with these thick lines. So you always have to kind of keep in mind where that thin edge is, and just paint the edge. And the more you do this, the more comfortable you'll get. Occasionally I'll get a thickish line. We can just put a flower there, so it doesn't matter. And we can have some, so if you make a boo-boo or you have some areas like this, you can see that the more grasses that I put in front of it, the more it's just gonna kind of disappear. And I just want to have these grasses going every which way. It's much better to have kind of a tangled mass of grasses kind of going in all this chaotic direction, some of them every which way, than to have your grasses all perfectly lined up and the same height. So you want to vary the height of the grasses, some short, some long, and you want to vary the direction of them so they're crisscrossing. So you don't want them to be too perfectly symmetrical or parallel. Okay, so just adding some of that darker phthalo green in. I might add a little bit of burnt sienna just to tone it so that it's not super vibrant. Oh, that's a pretty green right there. Okay, and I'm just going to go right up behind, like as if my post isn't even there. And some of these we're going to mostly just disappear. So This is the grass behind our posts that we're doing right now. So don't worry about the post being there. I just did it because I didn't want to have to draw it in later. This will help me kind of figure out. And I could have done this before I drew my post in. Honestly, I just kind of forgot to do it. So to be perfectly frank, I got ahead of myself and did my post before I did this part. But you can do it at any point. This will cover just fine. But I do want some that are kind of going up behind the post. And you can see how I don't have to reload that often. It's so nice to use these flat brushes. They hold so much more paint than a liner brush. So I'm getting some thickish lines there. That was because my brush wasn't fully on its bladed edge. And I want those grasses to come up pretty far. I'm putting in more grass than is actually in the photo, and that's just because I want more grasses and I want some taller flowers to fill in. So I'm going to put the grasses taller on this side to match the height of that post too. Okay, this is looking good. Right, so I want to, I'm going to do a few
I agree.
more flowers than what's showing. What?
Said I agree.
It's looking good? Nice.
And the painting.
Don't. Be here all night.
Oh, wait a minute, I've got one of
Or
those.
at least until 8. It's marked bedtime.
Oh, I got one of those sounds. I don't know if it works.
You need a sound machine with a little ba-dum bump. All right, I'm going to get the Phthalo green blue shade. This is just going to be a little bit slightly more bluish version. So if you don't have it, just add a little bit of ultramarine blue. Honestly, probably didn't need the ultramarine blue because I used all these greens. I kind of had it on my list before I decided to go ahead and just add all these greens. I thought I was going to mix my greens, but just decided to go ahead and use the fluid ones because they'd be a little bit easier. So what I'm going to do is kind of darken up some random spots. I'm using this larger brush, and this is pretty brown. It's not very green. This is that 10 flat. Make sure that these are dry. And then I'm going to just go in down low and just do some flicks. Because what I want is there to be some depth to these grasses so that when I do my top layers, they are brighter on top. So just going to do a little bit of dark. And you look at our picture, there is some dark. It's kind of more of like a reddish, so I might get a little bit more of that burnt sienna color and do some of that too. Keep it kind of the bottom third of the I can do math right now. Art brain. Art brain and math brain do not talk to each other. Also, word brain is not related to art brain in any way. Okay, there we go. So instantly kind of feel a little bit more depth to our scene by doing that. Okay. And then I think before I do anything else, I think I'm going to do one more layer of my light and maybe go a little bit lighter with my white. Maybe a little glaze. And just dab in some white areas up here. Oh, that green was still in there, so it's kind of tinting it. Let me get that green out. So just kind of adding, this can be over the top, but I just want a little bit more light. Everything, that pink really bled through all of our layers. So everything was looking pretty pink back there. So just adding a little bit more white. Might even add a little bit of yellow. I think I'm going to switch to a little bit smaller brush that's a little easier to control. So maybe get a little bit of my white and maybe a tiny bit of my India yellow. And I'm using the fluid paint here. And maybe some of these are a little bit lighter. And honestly, you can do as much or as little of this as you want. And you may not want it, and that's fine too. So however you want to do. Probably could have done this before I did my post, but it's hard to tell until you get some color down sometimes how bright you need to do your background. So, and if I want to blend off some of these colors, I can use kind of a dampened sponge and kind of rub the edges out a little bit if I want them to look a little bit softer and kind of melded into that background a little bit more. Just a soft sponge or even paper towel could work to kind of blend in some of those spots. Okay, that looks good. That looks good. I'm happy with that. I'm going to go a little bit closer to my bird there. You can use your finger too to rub out certain areas. I'm going a little bit lighter around my bird because he's going to be darker, so having that little bit of light around him might help him stand out a little bit more. And then I'm just going to kind of pick some random spots and just do a couple little bloops of color. Just like I did with that green earlier. Just leave a few little brush strokes. Okay, I like that. All right, I think most of this is dry down here, so we can go in now with our next layer on our wood. So I'm going to get that burnt sienna, burnt umber, yellow oxide trio, some unbleached titanium, and I'm just going to streak it. I'll go ahead and stick with this brush. It's fine. Just want a brush that's got a little bit of a thickness to it because I'm going to be really like wanting to add some dry brush texture to this, so it might be helpful to tape off those edges now. I think I'm going to do that so that I don't have to worry about painting over the grass. What is my tape? Oh, I think I left it in here. I moved stuff around. I got some new organizational stuff, and now I can't find anything. Who outsmarted who? Okay. Okay, so I'm just going to do like this. Make sure my background is not too wet. Otherwise, you might lift some of that color I just painted. That white. Okay, so that's good. There, I'm really only worried about the area right up next to my post. Okay, that's good. You know, Van Gogh would have been using tape if it was around. No. I don't know. Sometimes when I do this, I'm like, I wonder if Monet ever used tape. You gotta use the tools that are available to you. I wonder when tape was invented the way we have it now. Be interesting.
Let me see.
Mark's gonna do a deep dive.
I'm going to get out
Be
my
back.
Encyclopedia Britannica from 1979.
Pull out the huge volume.
in the S to U book.
That's funny. Okay, so adding a little bit of light color to the top there. And we'll just figure out what side's our light side. So I think I want my light side to be this side because I want to highlight the front of the face of the bird. So I'm just going to kind of lighten up this side of the post a little bit. Just run this color, and I've used my post color and just add a little bit of light. In my photograph, the light is kind of just coming from the top. It's not really directional on the post itself, but that doesn't mean we can't bump it up and do our own thing. So I'm gonna make a little bit more of a dramatic light here. And put a little bit more. Woo, that came off really
Very
weird.
dramatic.
Got a big chunk of paint right there. And picked it up.
Okay, I've got history for you.
Okay.
So for masking tape, it's accredited to Richard Drew
Okay.
in 1925.
Okay. So see, I was right. Van Gogh would have used it if he had had it available.
And it was the 3M company.
Really?
They're still around today.
Yeah. That's interesting.
The first tape known is surgical tape that was used in 1845.
1845. Okay, so maybe they had it.
But they have a surgical tape. It wasn't
Right.
like masking tape.
Right. Wasn't probably readily available to people.
Right.
I do know that the advent of the tube paints and the pre-mixed paints came about just before those, impressionists, because then they were able to start taking their paint and take it out in the field, and it was portable for the first time. They didn't have to have a, studio where it was being mixed on the go and all that right on the spot. It was able to be moved around. All right, so taking that burnt umber now and doing the opposite of what I did with the light color. Just kind of going darker on that one side there. And I'm going just mainly burnt umber for this dark part of it. I'm kind of just coming up underneath the light part. There's a little bit of the dark sort of on the shadow side of that top portion of the post. And then it's kind of an angle here. And then the lines down. And I'm trying to cover my grass here so that I can get my grasses in front in the right place. So there's pretty close to what I want, I think. It's not quite as yellow as the one in the picture, but we'll see. I'm not sure. I can go more yellow if I need to. I might get a little bit more of just the yellow oxide and just streak that on top. What are you laughing about?
Oh, because somebody pointed out that you said to cover my grass.
Yeah, I'm covering my grass up.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Well, take the G and the R off of
Oh.
one of those words. And we're having childish humor here
Okay, sorry.
in chat.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to just spoil your fun. If you have to explain the joke, it's not as
Exactly.
funny, so sorry about that.
Okay, boomer.
Hey, I'm in art brain right now. I'm not responsible for what I say.
So I know last week the question came up about how to help paint with if a person had issues with shaking their hands, and you talked about the art mall stick.
Right.
Have you used it yourself personally?
I've tried a version of it, just kind of made one for myself, but I've always just found my arm to be easier for me.
Yeah, because it's just right there, ready
Right,
and available.
yeah,
You can use
yeah.
it whenever you need to.
Yeah, it just doesn't seem as awkward to me. I'm going to get a little bit of white on the tip here and just kind of dab white highlights on the top of that Post. That didn't turn out very good, so I think I've got a brush that's a little too big. Might use a blender or something like that. I'm just gonna kind of use my blender and kind of brush that out. Could probably have just used my finger too. There's kind of like a couple of highlights there. Let's go ahead and kind of highlight the top of this one too, just a little bit. Keeping in mind that it's facing the sun and the light, so it's going to get more of that light. It's kind of disappearing though back there because it's the same color as our background, so, or the same value as our background. So I may just get a little bit of brighter white and just make sure that I've got a little bit of a brighter, or do what I did over here and just leave a little bit of that dark kind of peeking out from behind, just slightly. I'm going to change the shape of that one a little bit, bring it up. Okay, kind of got a little bit too much black in that. Okay. Let's see, I'm going to highlight that, but I got to let that dry a little bit because it's got too much paint on it right now. All right, getting there. Let's go ahead and work on our bird. These are our focal points, so we want to make sure we leave ourselves enough time to really get all the details in that we want on our bird. Okay, I'm going to really quickly put in these highlights on that section of the wood. Fitzy's like starting to sigh over there. My dog in the studio, it's like...
Well, he's so confused lately. Because, like, you know, I'm not going to say the S word, but he moved out.
Yeah,
So
our son moved out.
He's been lonely with that.
Yeah.
And then I was away on vacation for like 5 days. So
Yeah.
he was all out of sorts. And last night, Angela was out with her friends.
Yeah.
And so he's like, why isn't everybody just here
I
to
know.
pack together?
He doesn't want...
He's
yeah.
stressed.
Yeah. Oh, the pack has been way too active lately.
Too disbanded.
Want everybody to be home where they're supposed to be together. Okay. I don't know. I keep fiddling with this. And I think it's because I think this line is too clean, one. Because if I look at my picture, this line where it's cut is not like perfectly formed. So I need to just kind of come back here and sort of mess it up a little bit right there where it's cut. I think that'll help. Getting that dark color and kind of coming right up underneath. And then like right here, it kind of switches to light a little bit. And it's just slightly curved because of the curve of the pole. Okay. Just make sure you got plenty of kind of vertical streaks. You can use the edge of your brush to do lines in it. You know, I've got a pretty good amount of light on this side. It looks pretty good. That's what it looks like on its own. Okay, so I'm going to leave that, I think. Clean that up. I think before I do my bird, I'm going to go ahead and splatter. Do my first layer splatters at least. Probably do more, but I'm going to start. I'm going to use a little bit of that background green and my magenta. It's going to make kind of a mauve tone because of the green with the red being opposite on the color wheel. It'll kind of, but you can see it, there's a lot more magenta than green here. use that and just kind of splatter it around. So it's kind of just a subtle neutral for our background. Getting it everywhere. It's probably going to be on my monitor. If you're splattering, just make sure your paint's wet enough and that you're tapping in the direction that you want the paint to go. So I don't want to hold my brush up like this and tap on it because it's going to spray the paint right out that way. So I want to hold my brush flat or wherever my paint surface is, you know, out flat and tap straight down towards my canvas where I want the paint to go. And it's really easy to direct it exactly where you want it to go that way. I think people are like, I can't splatter, and I'm like, it is like the easiest thing, but I think they're probably holding the brush wrong, you know, or tapping it wrong, or they have their paint too thick. One of those three things. I use a fan brush for it just because it's kind of a thinner, flat surface so that more paint kind of comes off. You can also use a toothbrush or something like that and use your thumb to kind of spray it. I've done both ways, but I found I like the fan brush. Okay, there we go. Okay, I don't see my bird at all anymore, so I've kind of covered him up all completely with paint. I think I'll go ahead and paint him in with my angle brush, but I do need to clean off my surface here. I've got way too much going on here. I can't see I have no place to mix. So I'm just going to get a dirty towel. Oh, come on. There we go. These get all stuck together after a while because I got so much paint on them. And I don't think any of these colors are needed right now, so I'm just going to kind of wipe off what's thick. And then spray it with water. And use my scraper, and this is glass. If you have a paper palette, obviously you can just take off whatever's dirty, throw it away. This is nice because I don't have to, used to have to, when I had a paper palette, I would have to cut my paper off at the bottom, you know, and I'd have my paints at the top, and I'd waste parts of my palette. Okay, I really shouldn't be doing that while I'm holding it in my hand. Huh?
Safety first.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like realizing it after I've done it 12 times. Okay. That was my... All right, I'm going to spit that face down there. All right, so now we've got our palette cleaned off. I can mix up my bird colors. So the bird red part is going to be kind of a red iron oxide or burnt quinacridone burnt orange or one of those colors. So I'm going to use the magenta and orange, make a red. Clean that out. And then tone it with burnt sienna to make it a rusty color. Might go a little bit more orange. There we go. So we'll have a kind of a nice color there to use. And then for the brown part, it's going to be pretty close to these colors here, but I think I'm going to add a little bit of blue. So I'm going to use burnt umber and ultramarine blue. Thank you. I'm going to mix that up. And this is kind of a blue-gray, so I'll use this for the gray portions of the bird. Mix a little white into it here, and you can see how blue it is. And the more brown I use, the more gray it'll get. And then for the kind of back portion of the wings and things, I'm going to use more burnt umber. And it's kind of green, so I think I'll use a little bit of phthalo green. And some burnt sienna, maybe, just to make a kind of a muddy brown with a slight greenish tint. Yeah. Okay. So I'm not going to do that part yet, though. I think I want to paint his belly in. So I'm going to get a white and just use what's left in my brush here of this kind of muddy brown and get that gray going for the belly, the under part, and just leaving about a half an inch or so before the post, so I have room for the legs to go. And then top of the head and the face, just gonna kind of block it in with this color because it's light. Mix over the top of that gray that I put in there. All right. All right, so now I'm going to get my brown and put in my feathers. And I'm just going to kind of block them in sort of in the direction that I'm seeing in the picture. Just using that flat edge. Might get some yellow oxide. I see some kind of yellow areas sort of in the middle of the wing there. A little bit lighter, maybe a little bit of both of those, like burnt sienna, yellow oxide together. Yeah, like a little warmer brown. There we go. It's cute. Okay, then get a little bit more of that darker brown. Do the tail. Just setting up from the wing. Remember, the wing has this kind of dark line here that splits the body in half, and then this shape here makes kind of a 7 almost, like a check mark, upside down check mark. So making sure I'm kind of getting that line. And this, the tail is generally about the same distance from the base of the head to the rump. So you can kind of check your sizing that way. The robin, some birds, you know, are a little bit shorter tails. The robin looks like he's got a little bit shorter tail maybe than some, not super long. But that's a good rule of thumb, you know, just to make sure you're getting it long enough. I tend to find, I think people do the tails a little too short than too long a lot of times. All right, so let me get some of that golden yellow that was on the top there and add some unbleached titanium. And then I'm just going to come up under the wing and just do some little boops with it. I probably need a smaller brush here. I'm going to switch now to my number 2 round. It's a little smaller. You want your brush to be about the same size that you're doing your wings. So whatever size your bird is, you kind of size down accordingly so that as I'm dabbing on these wings, these feathers, I don't know why I said wings, I meant feathers. As I'm doing the feathers here, they're going to be about the same width as that brush. So I'm getting some nice little detail there, and I can just kind of layer them as I go up. Like that. All right, I'm gonna get some of that gray. Ooh, these are drying out. Make sure you're spraying them. I want to do all that work mixing those colors and have it dry off before you use them. Okay, so I'm overlapping where the brown and the gray meet, so that I have a good transition between those colors. Coming up from the bottom up and kind of getting a little bit lighter as it's going up a little bit. Remember, our light source is coming from this side, shining down, so this part of the breast is probably going to be a little bit lighter. So get some white here. Dab that on. Okay. Good. Get some of that darker color and maybe a little bit of that with the blue even. And just come up underneath where there's kind of a couple layers of the wings that overlap right there. We already kind of, the way we put it on, we already had some streaks there, but if you don't have those streaks, you go ahead and put them in now just by adding your dark or lighter feathers, whichever you need. I'm going to get some lighter, some of this color, and add a little bit of white to it and just put that back on with some of the over the top of the light areas of the wing. And then sort of at the top of the body there and up over the head. You just got a little cap. And then right up underneath that, there's a little bit of a dark area that kind of comes across where the eye is going to be. And then this is where that rusty red comes in. The rest of this face is going to be filled in with that rusty red color. And the head is really small, so I need to kind of adjust this drawing a little bit. So this is where the beak's going to come out. Right up underneath the beak it comes out, and this is where his belly comes out. So I'm going to do like that. And that part creates kind of a T almost right here. Like a round bubble letter T. If that makes sense. I don't know. Okay. Let me get a little bit of the yellow, India yellow, and some white. Mix that in with that red I've already got. I'm going to use it sort of on the front here to highlight the front breast. And just kind of break up that line so it's not like a solid line. I want to overlap it a little bit, so I'm just kind of tapping to get some little brush strokey details in it. Oh, he's so cute. So cute. Can't stand it. We did see one of these. I didn't get a picture of it when we were on our trip. This is a European robin. We saw it when we were in that Porta, I can't remember that place in Wales. They're kind of shy birds.
Yeah, very.
He did not want to be photographed.
Very shy.
He was not.
He knew as soon as we got our phone or camera out.
As soon as they got it out, he was just gone. Nope. No photos.
No paparazzi.
Nope. You know. Okay, so the legs are lined up. You can't see the other one, so I'm not worried about that. I'm going to kind of do the back and the back and bring one of these down a little bit more. And then there's a little bit of a toe there in the front that you can see. I added some burnt sienna to this red color, burnt umber. To this red here to get this color. Get my toes here. And if you want to do the little claw, you can. I'm not going to get too detailed with this. I'm going to get a little bit of white, maybe a little bit of that yellow want just a slightly lighter color, and I'm going to kind of lighten up the front leg just a little bit. And then the color of the feet are almost the same value and color as the post it's sitting on, so that's one thing that you can do to kind of help not have to do in all the detail, because if there's not a lot of contrast, your eye's not really drawn to it, so you can kind of fudge your details a little bit and not have to put in every little tiny detail that way. All right, so getting a little bit of burnt umber and adding it with my red down here. And I'm going to find the area where the eye is and kind of darken that up and sort of right where the beak is going to be too. I'm wiping my brush out, so I put that paint down, wipe my brush off, and now I'm just going to kind of pull that paint and push it around a little bit, just because it was a little bit thick. Okay, looks good. So let's get some black, and I'm using the fluid black. Switch to a smaller brush if you need to. This brush hopefully will do the job. We'll see. We'll find out together. Maybe a little thick. We'll see. So my eye is going to be like right here, which is kind of right smack dab in the middle of the face. We'll go ahead and do that right there. And then kind of if you take an angle from the top of the eye, and you kind of come down slightly at an angle and start in about, I don't know, 1/8 of an inch from the edge. That's going to be where I start my beak, and then I'm going to bring the bottom out a little thicker right there. Right, so that'll be my little beak. It is a little thick. I'm just going to let it set. I'm going to flatten that brush out so I'll get a little bit finer line and see if I can get a little bit better point on there. And I'm just going to tap off where it goes up into the face and help round out that eye a little bit. Alright, we'll let that set for a minute and just dry, and then I'll show you how to make the eye look more realistic. Let's go ahead and finish off the feathers because we missed our gray here that's in the middle. So between the wing and the red, there's this darker gray, and it's kind of that blue-gray color. So I'm going to dab that in now and dab it in. Just the feathers kind of angle back this way and they angle back down this way. So they kind of follow the curve of the wing and the outside of the body. And then right there, I need to go a little bit darker. I'm going to get some more of the Ultramarine Blue and burnt umber. A little bit of white. There we go. Cute. And then this is on the head, kind of behind the head too. Right there. And it goes right up to the eye. Right behind the eye. Okay. And get the white and mix that in so that I've got a lighter version. I might add a little bit of yellow to it just so it's like a little bit more green gray. And then I'm going to do another layer right where I just did. I'm just going to try to get a few little highlighted feathers. I need this darker part on top here to give it a second coat. That kind of yellowish part. There we go. Just kind of dab them so that they blend together a little bit. I think I need to move the eye up just slightly, maybe make it a little bit bigger too. There we go. Yeah, that's better. Getting some of that red. Add some yellow and white. Dab a second layer. The colors are kind of transparent, so your first layer may not cover. You need a couple layers. And it's pretty plain right there, so I'm going to get more white here and a little bit more yellow. That's a trick when you are mixing your red to keep an orangey red from looking too pink, is to add yellow to it when you lighten up the color. It is much more natural looking. Okay, there we go. Now we're getting a little bit of... There we go. And there's a little bit of this color just right up under the eye there, too. Okay. I think I'm going to bring the red down just a little bit into this gray, just a little bit more. Going to overlap just slightly. All right, he's getting close. Maybe bring his cheek out a little bit more. It does look like he's kind of ducking down a little bit. I don't know why, but it's just the way I did his head, I guess. Let me get a little bit of the yellow oxide and unbleached titanium. I'm just going to highlight the top of his head and try to round it out a little bit. The wings up here. Get that burnt sienna yellow oxide kind of mixture. Just round out that top just a little bit. I don't know why this is taking me a while to get him. Let's get a little bit of highlight on the wings over the dark areas. Go a little bit darker behind the eye right here again with that blue, ultramarine blue and burnt umber mixture. Okay. And kind of round those feathers out right there. And I think I'm going to go a little bit darker just underneath the belly. A little bit. Get some glaze and my burnt sienna, burnt umber, yellow oxide mixture. And just kind of darken up this area with a little bit of glaze, leaving the feather detail, just darkening it up a little bit. Just right there. All right. And then I'm going to get some white and some burnt umber. Mostly burnt umber, so just kind of a lightish brown. And I got a little bit smaller brush. I got the 3 round now. I'm going to highlight the beak and try to get a little bit more of a point on it. And then I'm going to use this color and I'm going to dot around the eye. This is the trick with bird's eyes. They always have kind of like a gray ring around the eye, or a lot of times they do, and that will set the eye in and make it look more realistic. It's amazing. just like a little gray, just a slightly lighter than our black. And now it looks like part of the head. You can take a little bit of darker gray and kind of tap from the beak to the eye too. Sometimes there's like a little bit of a darkish line that connects the two. Cute. All right, now I'm going to take my white right on the tip of that brush. I'm just going to kind of highlight with a little bit of gray. I had some of that gray in there, and I kind of just tapped in sort of a semicircle, and then you can go back in and do just a little dot of brighter white in there. And if you get it too bright, you can kind of tap it off with your finger or paper towel to kind of tone it back down. But that's about it. And then maybe a little highlight on the beak, and that's good. I'm gonna maybe put a little bit on the leg, on the toes. And this is where you can kind of add a couple more little dabs of white if you need some on the breast or anywhere, but that's pretty much what I'm going to do with the bird. I think I might bring his beak out just slightly more pointy on the very tip. There we go. So I just used my highlight on the top half to split. I didn't like do a dark split or anything on it. I just kind of did my highlight on the top half of it. I don't know. I think I probably could have made that eye bigger, but I'm not going to mess with it anymore. Let's do our flowers. Okay. We need a few more grasses and some flowers, and we'll be done. It took way too much time to do our fence. Didn't leave myself a lot of room to do my flowers, which I'm kind of bummed now. But Mark said it's not Oak Island night, so we may just go a little long tonight.
You're free to paint.
Very good. And clear to go. Clear for takeoff.
At 9 o'clock, you're on your own. Or really, 8:45.
Yeah. I'm gonna put a little too much white there. Dab that back off. Okay. All right, zoom out so they can see what I'm doing here, please. Thank you. All right, so I'm gonna go in front of my post now. I've mixed up a darker green that's got the burnt sienna and both of the phthalo greens, so it doesn't really have a leaning. It's a little bit more yellow green maybe. And I'm gonna do some grasses. I'm gonna try to kind of meander them a little bit. You can see how I'm kind of twisting my wrists slightly as I'm putting these on. And then over the top of the posts, I want to do lighter colors as well as the darker so that I get a little variety. And remember, we kind of made this background darker so that we could go back in here now and do some lighter colors with our darker. And see how those darker ones really show up nicely now. So let's make sure we get plenty of them sort of in front of the post and every which way. Nice. Yeah, I find that it is easier, like if I'm wanting to have it go in a certain area, if I kind of pull down the opposite way, then I can kind of control it a little bit better. But I find those lines tend to be a little bit shakier unless I've got my canvas twisted to the side. Right now it's kind of straight up and down. But if I, kind of turn it so that I can do like this, then I can really control it exactly where I want it to go. When I pull it from this direction. It's kind of when I'm doing like this, I'm sort of just flicking it and it's kind of ending where it ends. I don't have as much control over it. So if I want to really have precise control over it, I want to pull from the top down toward myself, or like I showed you, side to side. Okay, that looks good. And just a few of the lighter ones is all you need in front of the post here. And you'll get the feeling of depth. Lots of layers. Grasses are all about layers. I feel like you can't have too many layers when it comes to grasses sometimes. As long as you don't lose all of your values, you know. Like if I did too much dark or too much light or whatever, then, you know, we want to be able to see some individual brush strokes. So this whole middle area was kind of a mid gray, probably closer to this value. And now when I put my dark and light on, they really stand out. Okay. You get the idea. Let me get my round brush. And we'll do some flowers. This will be really fun, easy. I'll start with the white one since I've already got that color out. And I'm gonna use my round brush. This is a 2 round. I might use my Filbert too, I'm not sure. So I'll see how this round brush does. If it's not big enough, I'll switch to the Filbert. So just gonna start by doing some of these little ones down low. And the cosmos are really fun and easy to paint because they have these little pretty, I mean, straightforward petals, you know. Very much the kind of petals that you would, if you think of a flower in your head, those are kind of, you know, daisy cosmos. They've got the just single layer of petals that all kind of point to the center and just go in a circle. And depending on, you know, how the brush is, or the head of the flower is angled, I go a little bit thicker with my paint here. No, I think I like the thinner paint. I'm just finding it's not covering very well. I need to go a little bit thicker with my paint coverage. As you can see, I'm doing white, but I'm kind of letting it be streaky. And I can also add a little bit of one of my grays to the white, so I can get some of this blue gray or brownish gray and add that, so that I have, you know, a couple. I can come back and add my brightest white to them. So I probably want a variety of whites here. I'm just going to set my brush down and kind of pull it towards the center and just keep turning it so that it's always, that brush is always pointing toward the center. And then if it is slightly angled, the overall shape of the flower is going to look like an oval instead of a circle. So if it's facing us flat, it's going to look like a circle. As it turns away from us, it's going to look more like an oval on top. And then some of these we may even only see from the side. And those ones would be just the top down petals, and we'll have a little green nubbin where it's attached. Let me see if I can get some green here. So that there'll be a little thing like that. That one's hard to see, but you get the idea. Okay, so let me switch to my Filbert because I feel like this brush is a little too small. Just need like a slightly larger round here. Okay, so I'll do.
So somebody's asking,
Maybe a little bit of yellow.
Should the barbed wires go on first?
Oh, thank you. Yes, they should. Thank you. Whoever did that. Bonus
Sheila
points.
for the save.
Thank you, Sheila. I totally forgot.
She gets 50% off the charge for this video tonight.
Sheila, you're my hero. Thank you. Yes. So I'm going to I'm just going to mix up a gray. I'm not going to do the white because my background's too light, I think, for it anyways. So I'm just going to mix up a gray like it would be for like a barbed wire. There we go. I'm just going to kind of do a little shaky line across. And then whatever that, continue it back here. Try to keep it thin. Yeah, and then if you get it done and you're like, you know, you can't, you want some of the grasses to go over it, you may want to do another layer of grasses too after you do this. So I'm going to go a little bit darker and just give it a little bit of a darker. This is burnt umber and ultramarine blue here. Just in a couple places, just darken it up and make sure it actually attaches to the post. There we go. Yeah, that's cute. And then go down. Let's see, somewhere in here. And it's going to go a little bit more narrow as it goes up, so.
I have an important question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want some Skittles?
Skittles?
Yeah, I found some leftover Christmas candy over here.
Nice.
I started
Maybe
eating
later.
them, and I'm like, I don't think I should eat this much sugar right now.
Not right now. Thank you. Appreciate it.
You could add to the shakiness of your
Yeah.
waters
No.
there. Okay.
I'm good. Thank you. Okay. So there we go. Oh, thank you, Sheila. You are my hero for sure. That would have been a pain to put that around the flowers and stuff. It's kind of, I need to fix it right here. It's already kind of not quite doing it right there.
So you had your grass covered.
She had my, what?
Your grass covered.
Yes. Yeah, so I may go back in and do a few. But I probably was going to do more grass after I did my flowers anyways, so it'll be fine. I can just add more.
I love you so much.
Why? What?
You still don't get the joke even the second time.
What'd you say?
Said she's got your grass covered.
Oh, yeah, okay. Thank you. Yeah, no. No. You know me and puns. I mean, come on.
You're like, yeah, I'm going to paint some more grass over it, you know.
All right, I'm going to do some with yellow. I have a lightish yellow. I think I'll make this one more lightish yellow. There we go. And if it's not showing up, just kind of, maybe get a little bit of burnt umber and yellow oxide for the yellow ones and add some of that. It's kind of my go-to shadow color for yellow. That looks good. And I'm just going to place these where I want to, so I'm not going to really have a set. Not going to follow the picture as much. Get my yellow ones now. I've got some cosmos coming up. They self-seeded from last year, so I'm excited. They're about to start. They actually did start blooming already in my garden at home here, but I forgot to go out and get some. My granddaughter is coming this weekend, and she specifically requested that we go pick flowers, so kind of tried to leave the best ones for her. So I don't have any to share with you all tonight because priorities, All right, so going back over that dark with my yellow. Yeah, there we go. Oh, that's nice. That's a good one right there. Okay, and just keep on going. It's also nice to have this as an option. Now, some of these that are kind of really kind of turned, these bottom petals will just be like little blips. And then the top ones will kind of curve, be longer. And the petals are a lot of times will be kind of serrated on the top, so they'll have like one or two splits in them. Not splits, but the top of them will be kind of serrated looking. So that's kind of fun to do too. Okay. Let's do another couple, and this is just as many as you want, so it's not. Oh, these are so pretty. I love painted cosmos. I don't know, they're just such a like a cheerful flower, you know. They're so pretty in the garden too. They grow on these long, tall stems, and they're actually pretty decent cut flower too. They last for a few days cut. They don't drop their petals immediately like some diva flowers do, you know. I'm not naming any names, but poppies. All right, cute. Now let's do a few tall ones. Especially gonna like target it over this dark green so that it'll show up. Maybe get a little bit more of that dark color and add some of that dark streaking. The cosmos that I have come in multiple different colors, so they have like really dark colors, like dark burgundy, all the way to vibrant orange and yellow and white, and kind of all in between, all of those warm colors, really bright pinks. So you can do really any colors you wanted to here. They'd all be basically the same. You just kind of want, you know, 2 or 3 values per flower so that you've got a little bit of depth to them. So put in your mid-tone and then kind of come up from the top and put your highlight color on wherever you want that light to be hitting them. So I'm going to get some yellow and white here. Maybe cadmium yellow light, which is a little bit brighter yellow. And then just come back in with that. You can see over the top of that darker color, they're going to really pop a little bit. And I'm going to put in all the centers at the same time because they're all going to be kind of the same color. So not worried about them right now. So maybe do just a few little dabs that are just kind of unformed, slightly, you know, unopened buds or whatever. A lot of times in these flower fields, you'll see just little bloops of color peeking through the flower, you know, the grasses and stuff. So just do a few little dabs, and then we'll switch to our magenta. Clean this off again. We're almost done. You can see how fast these come together. They're not hard. They come together pretty fast. Just got some black there. All right, yeah. I'm going to scrape off all of these because this is all dried. Get some fresh white and unbleached titanium out. Okay. How you doing over there, hon?
I'm doing good.
Yeah? Being awfully quiet.
Sorry, I got distracted by.
I'm not laughing at your puns.
No, I made the mistake of checking my mail and then got looking at airline tickets to Hawaii.
Oh. You dreaming of your Hawaiian vacation?
Oh, wow. Cost dollars, lots of dollars.
Yeah, lots of dollars. Yes, they are. All right, so I'm going to use the magenta now and do some pink flowers. And I'm still going to use this Filbert. This is definitely working well for me, this 2 Filbert. Number 2. Whoops. I'm trying to get a clean paper towel. All right. just add white to this magenta. You can see that's pretty bright. I might just use that, we'll see. I've got a good stem here, so let's go ahead and put one kind of in front of the barbed wire right here. So set my brush down, wiggle it a little bit, and I can even kind of come back in and do a couple of strokes per petal. Let's go ahead and just kind of have this one fully facing us, open. There we go. Nice. All right, and I want the magenta ones to kind of lead to this, so I kind of maybe want another one over here. I like that there was one that was kind of low here, so maybe do one down really low, but really big, because it's closer to us. Varying the size will help with the perspective too. So, and then I'm going to get some darker magenta and do one. Do one right here. Maybe this one is a little bit smaller than the other one. Let me get some of that darker color and kind of streak it out from the middle a little bit. Add it to this one. Just sort of add some shadow to my petals. A little bit. All right, let's do some smaller ones. I'm going to do one that's kind of more oval shape. Maybe this one is just the tops of the petals. Not quite open. Or we'll put the little butt end on it. Well, I kind of don't like that those are right against each other. Let me go ahead and I'm going to open this one up because I don't want two right next to each other that are that. So if I do another one of those, maybe I'll do it up here. I actually wanted kind of a light pink up here. Maybe add a little bit of yellow to it. It's a little bit more of a seashell color. Seashell pink. Something like that. And then, I don't want them to be like completely not touching each other either, so maybe I'll do this one kind of touching this one here a little bit. Now I don't want to cover too much of my post either, so I need to kind of keep an eye on that because I want to be able to see that line coming down through. So I want to keep an eye on how where I overlap them. I might have placed that one too. There's a pretty big area there that's covering that post now. But that's good. So let's do another light one up here. bud down here. There we go. And then put a few just sort of small random ones. Maybe this one is down low there. Okay. All right, this is where I need to pull back and look at it because I'll tend to overdo. I've already, filled it up pretty good, so I think I'm going to stop there.
Flowers.
I know, I do that. But I could add one there. There's an open spot. I'm going to get some of that dark. Just add some streaks here and there. Now for the light pink ones, I can go kind of mid-tone for my dark streaks. I don't have to go as dark. So I want to keep my streaks a little bit more mid. Get some yellow in there too. These ones are a little bit more orangey pink. All right, and then I'm going to get my white. Make sure, let's go ahead and clean that brush out pretty good so that this white is pretty bright. I'm going to mix it with that pink that I was just using. And now I'm going to go on top and think about where the light's hitting. So if it's over here, a lot of times there's only a little bit of white on this side. Even though it's on the light side, it's actually cupped. So your light's hitting here, not down here. So the ones that are going to be lightest are going to be the ones that are opposite because that light is fully hitting that whole spot. So this side is actually going to be lit up. And that side maybe only just kind of right at the top. Makes sense. Okay. Sighing again. Pretty sure we've been going for 2 hours. Close to. He knows. He's got an internal clock. And I took Thursday off because my hand had been bothering me last week for my Thursday show, and he right at 2 when I normally do it, he started huffing and looking at me and looking at the door and looking at me like, are we doing this? Like, you're late. He knows. And our other dog, when Spencer was in the house, we had another dog that would go to the window every day right when he would get off the school bus, He knew exactly when. I don't know if they know that internal clock somehow. Fitzy always knows when it's been about 2 hours. Starts sighing and making a fuss. It's like, come on.
We're done.
Pretty sure, yeah. I was like, are we still doing this? All right, so just going back in and kind of trying to add some little highlights to these. For the darker ones, I've kind of already got some pretty good streaks, so I'm not going to do too much with them, but I might take some of this mid-tone pink and just come back in and highlight a few. And I mean, you can get fancy and put, shadow colors. I mean, I usually just kind of stick with the flower color, but you could You could do grays, so you could use gray and use a little bit of that in your shadow side and add a little gray if you wanted to. But I don't think I'm going to do that. I kind of think I want to keep my flowers more vibrant, so I'm just going to use the base color and use 3 different values of it, light, medium, and dark. Really kind of started with the mid-tone and did a little bit of the dark, and then now we're just hitting some highlights. And just kind of setting my brush down and lifting, not going all the way down into the middle with my highlights. It's cute. All right, let's add our green bits. So I'm going to get my little round brush here. Get some brown and phthalo, maybe a little bit of that color there. Burnt sienna, phthalo green. Get some of the phthalo green blue red shade, or phthalo green blue shade there. And anywhere where I've got the kind of flowers that are not quite open, I'm gonna do this at the base of them. So this one, that one's open, that one's open, this one needs it, this one also needs a stem, so I'm just gonna kind of carefully sort of put a stem going in behind. And I tried to kind of pick areas on this that had grass already, but if you don't, that's fine. You can just add it now. Okay. This one, maybe make it a little bit darker. All right. And some of these are, sort of, that line got a little thick. Some of these are just the little dabs and things. You don't have to put the stems to the ones that are kind of these dabs, because they're not meant to be fully flowered out. We'll put some grasses in front of them. So let's go ahead. I'm going to get the angle brush so I can do some dots. I'm going to get my yellow oxide and some India yellow and a little bit of burnt sienna. Make my kind of dark color. I might even add a little bit of green gold to it. And I'm going to dab in the centers of my flowers. And those will be the same shape as the flower edge. So if I've got a circle here, I'm going to do a circle in the middle. If I've got an oval shape, I'm going to do an oval, just depending on whatever shape I've already got in my flower. That makes sense. So in there, just little dabs of color. Be fairly dark. That way we won't have to go back in and shadow these at all. They're already kind of starting out dark, and then we'll add our light colors to them on top. Might add a little bit of unbleached titanium just to help them be a little bit more opaque. And if it's a smaller flower, make it a little smaller. If it's a bigger flower, make it bigger, you know, just kind of correspond it to the size of the petals. So I think we've got them all. I can tell my white one here that I didn't bring my white close enough to the center, so I'm going to go back into these white ones now and add more. I didn't highlight my white ones. You could also do daisies instead of just cosmos too. You could do loop and the larkspur. We're going to be doing that next week. Could add some of those in. Those look good. Any of the prairie grasses or wildflowers that you'd like. Just spread them around so that they, you know, have a good flow, and think about, you know, the spacing. Like my purpley ones kind of almost do a triangle towards, or the brightest ones kind of almost do a triangle towards the bird, and I kind of did softer ones back here so they didn't draw any attention away from the bird. Just thinking about my focal point, trying to keep the focus on it. Do another white one up here.
So you're going for more flowers, huh?
Well, I needed a white one up here because I had too many down here. Just the only place that I had them was right there, so need a little bit better balance of the colors. Okay, I can get some white and a little bit of bright pink, bright yellow, and do a few little highlights on those too. Yeah, so it stands out a little bit better. And if you wanted a brighter yellow, what you can do is do white by itself. So any of these that are white, you could go back in with yellow and make them yellow once you get that white down. I might add a little bit of yellow to these ones just to mess up that white. Turned out to be pretty bright there when I put it on. I'm not liking how bright that white is. All right, then to finish off the flowers, I'm gonna get my cadmium yellow light with a tiny bit of white. And I'm just gonna dab in the center of those. I'm gonna go back to that round or that angle brush though, because I can get better dots with it, or smaller round. That filbert wasn't pointy enough to get good dots, so dib dib dab. Leave a little bit of the dark at the top. See, that one turned out pretty white, so I'm just going to get some yellow, India yellow, and add that to my yellow here. And yeah, so it's a little bit, it's not quite as light. Okay, there we go. India yellow, cadmium yellow light, white. Just adding glaze to soften it off. It's a little thick. Little dots and dabs here. Again, just kind of carefully try to get it towards the top and middle, leaving a little bit of that dark, especially at the bottom there. But I'm kind of leaving a little bit of it all the way around. There's a little bit of a ring of dark color that's in there. I think with flowers too, you know, don't stress out over an individual petal or an individual flower too much. Like, do them as close as you can get, and then step away from it pretty frequently, because when you're getting right in them and you're so focused on every little detail, you can kind of get blinded to the overall effect, and you can overwork them pretty easily. And a little bit of imperfection, especially with flowers, is important to have. It makes them more realistic looking. So, you know, if you have all of your petals perfectly lined up and all the same size and, you know, everything, just so it's actually not as good as if you kind of have them a little messy. So, but sometimes when we're painting them, or if you're new to painting flowers, you know, it can be a little daunting because it's hard to embrace that messiness, you know, at first. So you kind of step back from it and look at it from a distance, and you can kind of see the overall effect. And sometimes that helps you kind of realize that what you thought was a mistake actually adds to the piece and works. So with this one, you know, I'm looking up at my monitor quite often just to kind of look and see the overall picture. It kind of gives me a thumbnail size view instead of looking at it, you know, looking at this section of it. I'm looking at the whole thing from a distance, and it kind of helps keep from getting too perfectionistic against, you know, because from a distance you don't see every little minor flaw. Okay, I think we're getting pretty close here. Pretty happy with this for the most part. Really like the colors on this one. Tried to keep it pretty muted and subtle. Try to kind of use the same colors of the birds in the flowers and everything, and the background too. Yeah, kind of fun, huh? So let's go ahead and do a little bit more splatter. So I'll do look like a lighter color splatter that'll show up against the dark here. And
got a quick question.
mm-hmm.
Somebody would like to know, what colors would they use to mix to get India yellow?
India yellow is probably like, well, it's just a slightly more golden yellow, so you'd have to have a darker yellow. You could maybe add your orange if you had an orange to help, you know. So it's just like a gold, more warm yellow. It hits closer to orange. So, you know, if you add any, get a color that's close to yellow, as close to yellow as you can, that's on that orange side of the spectrum, and you'll be able to mix it. It is a mixed color though. Let me look and see what it says on the tube. I can't remember offhand. It is PY 150, which is Azo yellow, PY 175, and PR 122. So that's a red. 122, I can't remember what that is. PY 175, that's probably like a cadmium yellow. So the nickel azo yellow is kind of a brownish, warm, but vivid. Huh?
PR122, Quinacridone Magenta.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Okay, so magenta. So a little bit of yellow and magenta. Yeah, that'll do. Just try mixing a yellow and magenta together, which would be, like closer to orange. So that'll work. And then your PY150 is that nickel azo yellow, which is more of a orangey yellow. So, you could try mixing a red. And I don't think this is going to show up. I think I need a white. So I'm going to get some white out. Because I was mixing this yellow, but then I'm realizing so much of this background is so light, I don't think this is going to really show up. We'll just try white and maybe add a little bit of blue to it to make it a little different. Cooler white. Okay, to cover anything you don't want, to get the color on. These splatters are also nice because they kind of cover a multitude of sins. They sort of meld your colors together. So you can use your pinks, you can use your yellows, any of the colors that you've already used. And if you want like thicker drops, you can add a little bit more water to them. You get bigger bloops. I'm going to do just a few sprinkles over my bird, just lightly. And there we go. Fun little cosmos with a field fence. A little bird. Cute. I'm going to dab him off so he doesn't have so much. There we go. All right, we're done. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us tonight. Hope you enjoyed it. Give it a thumbs up, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Share it. It really does help. It's a small thing that you can do if you enjoy our videos, but it really does help tremendously with the algorithm, the almighty algorithm here on YouTube, to help get our channel videos shared more often so more people can see them. Just hitting that share button, even if you don't actually share it anywhere, just hitting the button and liking it helps the video do better and give it more traction. So leaving a comment is huge also. Let me know what you liked. If you didn't like it, that's okay. You don't have to leave a comment. No, you can. It always helps. It's painful, but these are free videos, so
Hey,
they're not perfect.
We don't
do the best we can.
We really don't mind the constructive criticism. We
Right.
really don't.
No, we don't.
But if you're a Pepsi fan, don't complain to Coke that they don't make it right.
That's true.
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, that's true. And it's, it's the comments like, you talk too much. Well, this is the kind of video we do. If you don't like it or, you're taking too long or whatever, it's like, this is live. This is the actual, you're seeing the whole process here. So, it's free. It's, it is what it is. We're not for everybody, but for those who enjoy our videos, we really appreciate you. We appreciate those who've stuck with us and come back
Absolutely.
week after week. You guys are awesome. We really love our community, and I really do think we have the nicest people, the nicest community. Y'all are nice people. You're good people, and we appreciate you so much. So thank you. Thank you for watching our videos with us and week to week. And if you're interested in the traceable and you want to paint along with us and have the outline to start with, that'll be available on my Patreon. So patreon.com/angelfineart. I really do need to do a better job of that. It's kind of ugly. Oh well. Maybe I'll remember.
We're professional
Maybe
graphic
next week
artists.
it'll be pretty. Just come back next week, see if I've changed it. I've been meaning to do it for months now.
Absolutely.
Anyhow. All right. Well, there we go. Oh, super chat. What?
You're just rushing off. You're not giving me any chance to do anything here.
Okay.
It's not all about you. I got to ring my cowbell. Thank you very much.
Come on. Focus. There we go. I think it's time for a new camera. This one is not wanting to focus all of a sudden.
I agree.
This is the pen that I was using. The pen type 0.7 millimeter Posca Uni. Go.
Go. All right, here we go.
Aw, thank you, Wordy. That's so sweet.
Yeah. Just came in.
I love your name, too. That's really fun. That's really cute.
Thank you very much. That is awesome.
Very cute. Thank you for the generous donation. I really appreciate it. All right, that's it. Another week, another tutorial. I love doing this with you guys. It's so fun. I have the best job in the world. This started out with me and teaching local art classes to kids here from our church mostly, and people that I knew locally, and then now we're teaching to people all over the world.
From
it's
all
incredible.
the continents.
Yeah, YouTube's opened up a whole new thing for a lot of artists. It's
Yep.
really amazing. So we're really privileged and blessed to be able to get to know you guys and paint for you. So hope this inspired you and get to painting this week. I'd like to see your stuff, and there's links down in the description to how to share it with me if you paint along, and all the links to buy and stuff, and all website and all that good stuff. So check it out. We'll see you next week. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye.